Okay, so let's start from. So there's Machlekes Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish, going back to the Mishnah on Amud Aleph that the Gemara was discussing. The Mishnah says that somebody who sold his field to a guy, so he needs to buy back the fruits from the guy's field and bring them for Bikurim. Why? It's like a knas that a person shouldn't get used to. People shouldn't get used to selling to the properties of Eretz Yisrael to Goyim. So the Chacham were masakin that you have to go back to that field, back to that guy who didn't like you in the first place, and you have to buy the first fruits from him, or some kind of fruits from him, and bring that as Bikurim. So the question is, why do you have to bring Bikurim if it belongs to a guy where it's part from? Yep. Yeah, so that's the Gemara. It's a Machlekes Tanam, which we mentioned earlier already, that there's a Machlekes that is there a Kinian Levid Kachavim B'Eretz Yisrael Avkim Midei Meiser or not? So if we hold that there is a Kinian Levid Kachavim B'Eretz Yisrael Avkim Midei Meiser, so then this property is going to be parted from Bikurim. But if not, then the property is Mechuyev Bikurim. So it's very interesting. But Etzem, Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Yidden. Belongs to Klal Yisrael, whether we're actively living there, whether we're not actively living there, whether we own it, whether we don't own it. There's still stuff in the karka there. There's still Zachim that we're Mechuyev in, even if we're not there. So the land is Mechuyev and Bikurim even if I don't own it. So if I don't own it, I have to go back and I have to deal with it.
That's according to the Shita that it is Mechuyev. No,
yeah. So the Shita is not Mechuyev. Okay. Okay, so where should we start? I don't have exactly a good place to start, but we could really start from the Itmar, on the last line of Mem Zayin Amud Beis. Somebody who sells his field when Yovel is noyek. So Yovel has all the halachas of Shemitah, right? So every 7 years is Shemitah. So year number seven is Shemitah, right? So when you count to 49 is the 7th year, right? And Yovel is the 50th year. So you have Shemitah and then you have Yovel, right? But the 49 and the 50th year, both of them have some kind of Yovel aspects to it, as we'll see in the Gemara. So Zok Rashi, Kol Mechiras Karka LePeres Sharei Choyzer Haguf BeYovel. Any field that you're going to sell by Yovel, so the karka, anything that you're selling only for the Paris, because the Guf HaKarka, the piece of property,
doesn't transfer.
That doesn't transfer. That's going to go back to the original owners by Yovel, like it says in the Torah. So Rabbi Yechon and Omar. So when it comes to Hilchos Bikurim, so the main part of Bikurim, besides for bringing the actual fruits to the Beis Hamikdash, is the Kriyas Mikra Bikurim, the beginning of Parshas Kisavai Aram Yavid Avi, and you say that whole parsha, and then you put the Bikurim down, and then you give it to the Kohen, and then it's a whole. That's the mitzvah.
So the question is, just to clarify, the question is who's mechuyav in that mitzvah? If the land is not transferable,
right? But the Paris are.
The Pirot are. So therefore, if Reuven sells the Pirot to Shimon, now Shimon is mechuyav in that mitzvah of Bikurim. Did Reuven basically acquiesce his mitzvah, or paturim? Did he basically did he exempt himself from the mitzvah of Bikurim? What's exactly happening?
Right. So the Gemara is going to go through it. The Gemara is going to explain.
Okay. Good.
So Gemara says like this: Machlekes. This is quite a huge Machlekes. Comes up all over the place. Comes up all over Shas. Is Kinyan Paris Keknין Aguf Dami or not? Right. So Rabbi Yechon maybe the Rabbi Yechon says you bring the Paris and you do the Mikra Bikurim. Because very interesting. Just a little bit of a background. If you learn the Mishnayos of Bikurim, even on a superficial level, you'll see that whoever owns the land where the Paris grow, that makes a huge difference. And many Mishnayos over there come out. The whole first parak is discussing different halachas of the land where the Bikurim is growing. Where it doesn't discuss the actual bringing of the Bikurim till the third parak. So the first parak is dealing with which land is Mechuyev and Bikurim or not. So there is a concept that the land is Mechuyev and Bikurim. Forget about the Paris. We're talking about the land, the actual karka, right? So think about what we just explained. If the pshat is that we're dealing with the actual Paris, and Bikurim is only about Paris, so then kifi what we're talking about over here, it's not a problem. But if we're talking about that the land also makes an afkamina in the, so then it's going to change things too. 100%. So that's what we're going to have to. So that's what the Gemara is discussing. The Gemara mentioned this. The Gemara mentioned this earlier also, but this is what the Gemara is going to go through.
So just to get let's get a case.
I didn't know where we got up to yesterday, so.
I missed yesterday.
Yeah, you missed yesterday also.
So we're on the same page.
So we're all on the same. We're all on the same page. That's it. All right, top of Memches.
I could have like figured better thought to say that. Like, okay.
The top of Memches Amud Aleph. Yeah. So that's the Shiloh. But again, in Hilchos Bikurim, forget about our Gemara for a split second. In Hilchos Bikurim, what's important to know is that there's certain types of land, certain types of properties, certain types of karka that you would not be bringing Bikurim from because there's some issue with the land, right? So obviously the main mitzvah of Bikurim is the peiros that grow from that land, but sometimes the land will cause an issue that you wouldn't be bringing the peiros from that. So that's what we have to see. It's going to be the Machlekes Reich and Reish Lakish about is Keknין Peiros Keknין Aguf Dami or not. So let's go through the Gemara and we'll see. Hopefully we'll get some clarity in this question. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar maybe the Kaireh. Reish Lakish Amar maybe the Reish Lakish says you bring it, but you don't. So there's really three levels of bringing Bikurim. There's maybe the Kaireh, that's mitzvah lechatchila, to bring the peiros and to read the parsha Bikurim.
This is the owner or the
This is the owner. This is the regular Bikurim. Regular Bikurim.
So this is the Reuven himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's the mitzvah. Then there are some that are maybe ve'ena kaireh. They bring the fruits, but they don't read the parsha Bikurim. And then there's the third one that he doesn't even bring the Bikurim to begin with, meaning that he's not mechuyev in Bikurim at all. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar maybe so Reish Lakish Amar maybe ve'ena kaireh. So the Gemara is going to explain. Rabbi Yochanan Amar maybe v'kaireh. Why? Because he holds Keknין Peiros is Keknין Aguf Dami, right? And the Guf is Chayzer by Yovel. So he's so right now when he sold it, Bizman Shel Yovel Noyek, right? He sold his field Bizman Shel Yovel Noyek, even though the field is going to go back by Yovel, but right now he's selling the Peiros, so it's good. It's good. It's maybe the curve. It's no problem. So Keknין Peiros is Keknין Aguf Dami. So if you have a Keknין on the Peiros, as if you owned a piece of land. Reish Lakish Amar maybe the ain't curve because Keknין Peiros lav Keknין Aguf Dami, and the Keknין Peiros is not like a Keknין on the actual piece of land. But Shricha, we need to speak this out. Why? Di itmar bahi, because if we would just know from the original halacha that we spoke earlier, that hamaycha sadeilah Peiros. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar maybe the Reish Lakish Amar maybe the ain't kaireh, right? A person who sells his field for the Peiros. That was the Mishnah. That was the brayso that the Gemara mentioned on Mem Zayin Amud Beis. But he come Reish Lakish the chi kanachis adaita the per kanachis. So when he's going down to the field, when he's buying the field, why is he buying the field? Is he buying the field because he likes grapes, or he's buying the field because he likes property and he likes land, and he's gonna do something with the land? So the chi kanachis adaita the per kanachis. So why is he going down to the fields? If the pshat is going down for the peiros, and he has no. Rashi says, "Afilu sha'achas." He doesn't even consider for a second he didn't even entertain the idea to buy the land. He just wants it for peiros. So maybe in our case of when he sold the fields, so maybe he's actually thinking about the actual piece of land. So maybe over here, Rabbi Yochanan should agree to Reish Lakish that that Keknין Peiros is not Keknין Aguf Dami, right? So we have to see what Rabbi Yochanan is saying over here. Meaning, it depends which. Meaning, why does the Gemara need to speak at both cases? We didn't see this Gemara now, but this was in yesterday's daf about over here in the smack in the middle of the Yamid of Mem Zayin and Beis. So what does the Gemara is asking? Why do we need to bring the second case of What's the difference? Because if you would just bring the case of Peiros, so then I would think that it's Dafka Peiros. He's not thinking about the Karka Bechlal, and so everybody's focusing on Peiros. But when it comes to our case, maybe we're focusing only on the land, or we're not focusing on the Peiros at all. Therefore, the Gemara says we need to bring both cases. One to teach you about the Hilchas Peiros, and one is to teach you about the halachas of the land. Now, there is no nafkamina. Rabbi Yochanan still holds that Keknין Peiros is Keknין Aguf, and Reish Lakish holds that Keknין Peiros is lav Keknין Aguf. Okay, that's why we need both. Okay, Tashema. Let's hear a raya from a Mishnah Bikurim. Hakayne Ilan. Somebody buys a tree v'karkoi and the property around the tree, maybe v'kairei. He brings Bikurim and he does Mikra Bikurim. What are we talking about? We're talking about Dafka when Yovel is not Noig. Why? Because when Yovel is Noig, then we're going to be thinking about the Karka also, that the Karka is going to go back to the original owners. Then when he sold it, right? So because the land is going to go back, then maybe he's not going to be Mechuyev in Bikurim. Or at least you won't be able to do Mikra Bikurim. So how can the Mishnah say that it's maybe Bikurim? Elamai, the field is not going to be going back by Yovel. right? Meaning because the Gemara originally thought that this would be a kasha because hakarne ilanu karkar. Maybe what do you mean maybe v'karvi? He should be mechuyev and he shouldn't bikur. Maybe he'll be mechuyev, but not in the mikra bikur. Fine, tashuma.
So mikra, so we're inferring the mikra bikurim. His implication implies the guy has title to, indeed to the land.
Yeah.
Therefore, he acquires the right of mikra, predicated on the fact that he has ownership of the actual land. So
Yeah.
the question is, can any real owner, any buyer of any property, can they make that mikra? Because according to the deen, it always reverts back to the original owner. So can anybody really make that? Any buyer really technically make that?
So that's why the Gemara is answering was bansha ena yovel noig. Because when yovel is not noig, then the property is not going back to anybody. The property stays by me.
For 50 years.
No, that's only by yovel it goes back by 50 years. But bansha ena yovel noig. Like today,
Oh, it doesn't go back.
it doesn't go back ever.
Got it.
It's interesting because I saw once a whole country was written. It was actually Shemitah. I think it was last Shemitah, not this past Shemitah, but 7 years before that, about how come we don't do Yovel B'zman Hazah. What's so difficult about having Yovel being Noig? I mean, forget about it. The banks are going to be going berserk, but besides for that, we can make a cheshbon of the years. Like, it's not so complicated to make a cheshbon of the years. So I saw a whole country. I saw actually 2 different countries coming to handle all these questions. Yeah, it's going to get very interesting. We'll see what happens when Mashiach comes. It's not a.
You got it. So bottom line today, it's not away. We're not.
We don't do anything yet.
Right. So therefore, the mahloket rests in the fact of who really owns.
Bizman hazeh, if I buy a field, so then I own that. I own that behechlet. I own that behechlet gomer. That's it. Right.
Got it.
All right, let's go back.
But when you sold it, you're selling only. Are you selling only the perot? Or are you selling the dafka, the field, and the perot? That's the whole question.
So there you have to see the mishnayos and bikurim, and that's what the Gemara is going to bring now. For our purpose, for our Gemara, in terms of when you buy the karka, how many trees do you have to buy in order for it to be considered like you own the karka? That's what the Gemara is going to say right now. Tashuma. Yeah, let's bring another raya nacham mishnah bikurim. Maybe somebody who acquires 2 trees in his friend's property, in his friend's field, right down there on his fourth, friend's field. Maybe he brings bikurim, but he doesn't do mikra bikurim. Why? Why doesn't do mikra bikurim? No. Right? Because he doesn't own enough property he doesn't own enough land attached to the trees that should be enough to make a curry. Hashloisha. If he would own 3 trees, then he would own a lot more property with it. Maybe I think there's an understanding also, if I'm not mistaken, from a Gemara Bava Basra also, that a big thing is that if I buy a tree, I'm only selling you the tree. I'm not really selling you any karka with it. I'm not really selling you any karka with it.
You would think so, because otherwise, why are you selling me a tree? You selling me the whole land.
Because you're buying the tree for the parents. You're not buying. Right.
Exactly.
So if I'm buying 2 trees, maybe he wants to buy the field. 3 trees for sure. 2 trees is a shikol machlekes, we'll see. But 3 trees is klar, ha-shloisha maybe v'kar. Right? So you see if he has 3 trees, he's maybe v'kar. That means if he owns the land, then he should be bringing the bikurim.
Good.
So zok the Gemara, hachanami b'zman she'ena yovel noyed. So this is also talking about b'zman she'ena yovel noyed. Why? Because b'zman she'ena yovel noyed, that then when you sell the karka goes with it. When you sell the trees, the karka goes with the trees.
Right.
Okay. Hashdam Rav Chisda machlekes be able sheni, aval be able rishon the called maybe the kairei. So this Rav Chisda says that it's a machlekes only by yovel sheni, but not by yovel rishon. By yovel rishon the called maybe the kairei. What's yovel sheni?
I'm just going to ask that.
Yeah. So Zak Rashi, machlekes Reish Lakish Rav Yechon be able sheni shemanu Yisrael that Klal Yisrael counter shakvar hugulu lahachzak karkois bahi. Bahi kamer Reish Lakish maybe ve'enik kar the samchet daite the moicher. The vader hadr lev is the betuch sheachzi ren.
Got it.
What is our school taijin?
So it's the period after the very first Yovel year, meaning the second Yovel after the first one, in which the practice of returning land to its original owner was first observed. Only after people became accustomed to returning fields were the sellers confident that their land would be returned in Yovel, and the buyers fully cognizant that their ownership was limited. Thus, the dispute only applies to that era.
Right, because if you're not going to say that, meaning, the question is, Mecha Teis, you're going to give me back my field. Yeah, the Torah says, we know all these chevra already.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You ever
I
get?
got it. Let's see in action.
You ever?
Let's see in practice, right?
Let's see. Listen. You can't. You can talk all you want,
Right.
but it doesn't help until you give me. Until the money's in the bank accounts, the help is the gunish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the whole.
So that's Yovel Rishon and that's Yovel Sheni. So Yovel Rishon is nobody's really certain. Yeah, everyone's very nervous. Everyone's walking around like, hey, what's happening? Are they going to give me back my house? They're not going to give me back my house. Am I going to see my field? Am I not going to see my field?
Exactly.
Right? I will be able Rishon Divrei Hakol maybe v'kari. But by Yovel Rishon Divrei Hakol maybe v'kari. Why? The Akati lo samach datayu. Because they still, meaning if I bought the field from you, I can still, the buyer can still be maybe v'kari. Why? Because Akati lo samach datayu. I could assume that you're not going to take it away from me.
Correct. We never went through that process yet, so you could assume, I may not have to give it back. It may be mine forever.
So like kasha, habi yovel rishon, habi yovel sheni.
Good.
So it's not shver because in the first yovel, meaning what were we saying? So let's just go back a little bit. Oh, so again, so just like we said, that the pshat is because by yovel rishon, the buyer has the upper hand, so to speak, because the seller, he's not he's still nervous.
Hasn't been proven yet. Exactly.
Right. So I'm still hold on to it because I'm still hold because I have it till now. I'll be able to change. So let's say this is machlekes tanoim. Minayin lelekech sodamei avivik disha v'achikach meis aviv minayin shetei lefanav k'stei achuza. How do we know that if somebody who buys a field from his father and then he's makdish it, and then the father dies? So then the field becomes a stei achuza. So what's a stei achuza? So let's see Rashi. So let me get started on Keknין פירות כקנין הגוף דומי אלוהי. Or this is bringing us back to Erichin shtickle. Yeah, Erichin as a whole. The last three prakim deal with all the stei achuzas and all these kinds of things. So Yovel and stei achuza.
What's the case here?
So let's see Rashi. Yeah. So let's see. We want to say that it's a machlekes tanoim about Keknין פירות כקנין הגוף דומי or not. So stei achuza. Im hikdisha v'loy gala. If he was makdish it, he gave it to hektish and he never redeemed it from hektish before Yovel. And then the gizbar, the gabai of hektish sold it la'acher. Ein in the gelas oid. The halacha is that once he sells it, he can't redeem it again. And when it's so by Yovel comes and frees up all the fields. So the one who bought it, he doesn't have the field anymore. But because it's going to go back to hektish really, because hektish was the one that had it last. So it's mischalekas haKohanim. The Kohanim get this field. Shenemar v'im leyigal es hasoda. Okay, v'aya hasoda b'tzeisei b'yovel v'stei mikne. So that's a stei achuza, and the stei mikne is k'shehektisha v'loy gala. A stei mikne is when he was makdashed and he didn't redeem it. U'macha hagizbar k'sheyaytze b'yovel, and the gizbar sold it when it was going out by yovel, meaning that it's going to chezeres l'bailam harishenim shemachru l'makdish. But a stei mikna is going to go back to the one who was makdish to hektish. Shenema b'shnasa yevel yoshev asad l'asher kanei me'itay. So there's two things. There's a stei achuza, which means a sada that he got b'Yerusha, and then there's a stei mikna, which is a sada that I bought. So a stei achuza by yovel, if he was makdish it and then the gizbar sells it, so instead of going back to the gizbar, or instead of it going back to the one that was makdish it goes to the Kohanim. This is a totally separate
left field situation.
Yeah, this is a totally separate zach, and it's the mikna goes back to the original owner by Yovel. Meaning, even if it was sold to hektish, right? V'loy gala, right? And he didn't redeem it. So then it goes back to the one that was makdish. Okay, so again, minayin lelekech soda me'avivik disha v'achakach me'av minayin shetei lefanav k'stei achuza, right? He bought it, so technically it's a stei mikna, right? But because it's coming from his father, the Gemara, it turns into a stei achuza. Talmud loymar im stei miknasa shaloim stei achuzasa. Sada sheina ruya liya stei achuza yatazu sharuya liya stei achuza. Divrei Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon. So the Gemara that this field is eine ruya liya stei achuza, meaning. What's the pasuk say? Im estei miknasa shaloim stei achuza. So if we're talking about a stei mikna, we're not talking about a stei achuza, right? So then that's going to go back to the one that was makdish, right? But yatzazu, meaning that one's not going to go to the Kohanim, right? Yatzazu, this one will go to the Kohanim. So really, a stei achuza de Reb Yehuda Reb Shimon. Fine. That's good. Rameir Aimer. Rameir says, "Minayin lelakech sada me'avav umeis avav yachakach ektisha. Minayin shetelefon k'stei achuza." If a person bought a field from his father and then the father died and then he was makdishit, so how do you know that it should be like k'stei achuza? Tamlemer mestei miknas shlem k'stei achuza. Sada she'en k'stei achuza. A field that's a stei mikna and not a stei achuza. Yatsa zu shehi stei achuza. So excluding this, which is a stei achuza. So what's the difference? What's Rameir saying different than what Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon are saying? So one is that he was makdashit b'chayei aviv, and one is that he was makdashit after the father died. So let's see it again in the Brayso. Right? So that's the Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. That's what Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon are talking about. Rameir says he bought a field from his father, and then his father died, and then he was makdashit. So who's it going to go back to now? You hear the two cases?
Let's go over it again.
The first case is that he bought a field from his father, he was makdashit, and then the father died. That's Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir's case is talking about where he bought a field from his father died, and then he was makdashit.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was makdashit, he is it considered a stei achuza or it's considered a stei mikna, right? Because he yarshened it already. Once he yarshened it, then it becomes a stei achuza.
But if you bought it in both cases before his father passed away, he has what is it? What's the difference if his father passed away or not?
Because what happened in between? He was makdashit. He was makdashit. So he doesn't own it anymore. So who does it go back to by Yovel? So is it a stei achuza or it's a stei mikna? Say if he bought it from his father, right?
Before his father passed away.
Before his father, no, he was. Meaning the defining factor over here is going to be when was he makdashit?
So in the case of Ahuzah, he was makdashit.
So Achuza means Yerusha. It's just a different term for Yerusha, so it doesn't have to be so confusing. Right? And Mikna means that he bought it.
Right.
Yeah? So let's go it over inside one more time. Minayin lelakech sada me'aviv. How do we know that somebody bought a field from his father Vikdisha and he was makdashit? V'achakach meis aviv minayin shetelefon k'stei achuza. Right? And then his father died. How do you know that this field should become k'stei achuza? Tamalemer mestei miknasai shlem stei achuzasai. Sada she'en really a stei achuza. Im estei miknasai. Right, that's a stei mikna, and not a stei achuza. Yatzis hazu sheruyili is stei achuza, excluding this one because this one is roi. This one can be a stei achuza. Rabbi Shimon. Rameir says, "Minayin lelakech sada me'aviv." He bought a field from his father, umeis aviv, and then his father died. He was makdashit only after his father died, right? So minayin shetelefon k'stei achuza. How do we know that this field also should be considered like Yerusha stei achuza, and it's going to go back to him? It's going to go to the Kaihanim by Yovel after Yovel. Talmud Leimar imes demekrata shalem is stei achuza. Sodesh ein stei achuza yotzazu shehi stei achuza. Yeah, excluding this, which is also considered a stei achuza. V'ilul Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon meis aviv yakach hakiktisha leitzricha kra. According to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, if the father first died and then he was makdashit, you don't need a pasuk. I think that's what was bothering you, right? So my love bakum b'fli. Let's say that this machlekes Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon is a machlekes kinin peres kekinin aguf dami. Because the Rameir sova kinin peres kekinin aguf dami, so Rameir will hold that kinin peres is kekinin aguf, that if you buy the peres of a field, you're really buying the peres of the field that you should own the land. Ubahab misas avav hu de lo yaris v'lo midi, and when the father dies, he's not going to be yarshening anything. Now what are we saying over here?
That's right. He previously been the owner. He didn't inherit anything when his father passed away. He already had ownership.
Right. It didn't go be Yerusha. So if it didn't go be Yerusha, it was already mine.
Exactly.
Right.
Yerusha what? Yerusha nothing.
Right. Yeah. So Zak the Gemara. So who lo yaris leimidi? Hilkach meis aviv hakikdisha tzarich kra. That's why he. So we need to speak it out. So the pasuk needs to speak it out. That if the father died, because you shouldn't think that it's still considered Yerusha, even though it didn't belong to the father anymore. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon Savri, so that's why kinin peres kekinin aguf. Now, how does that equal kinin peres kekinin aguf? Zak Rashi, lo tzricha kra. The tzricha kra, because if you would need a pasuk to teach me this, hikdisha v'achakach meis avim min aluhu. How would we know hikdisha? And then the father dies. How would we know that? Right, so kinin perish rahaisa kanu loy me av b'shashon v'savi kinin perish rei yovel noy. Because we're talking about where yovel is noy. So then kinin perish is kinin aguf, dummy, right? So and then the whole sale of the karka is. the whole sale of the karka is going to be for what? Leperis, because I know that by Yovel the field is going to go back to the original owner.
Right.
So whenever Bisman Shayevel Noig, anything, right? So anything that I'm selling Bisman Shayevel Noig is only for Paris. It's not going to be for the land. Then the land is going back to the original owner by Yovel. And now things are starting to fall into place.
Totally got it.
Yeah,
I
it's good.
Good.
Zok Rashi weiter.
Good.
So therefore we can say it's kekinin haguf dami. V'chimayis aviv lo yaris midi. V'le havi le'achuza. So when the father dies, he doesn't yarshin anything, and it's not a ste'achuz at all. Hilkach, ilav the Rabbi Kraf, not for the fact that the pasuk is marba this kind of a field, lehava amina the tehevik is ste'achuza. The only reason why this can still be considered ste'achuza, the pasuk still considers as ste'achuza, even though Ba'atzim didn't yarshin anything. We just said that it's not Yerusha because the father died after he owned it already.
So how can it be considered ste'achuza at that point?
The pasuk makes it ste'achuza, meaning because it's going to go to the kahanim.
I got it. But how does it do that?
It sounds like that's what the pasuk is saying.
So again, to clarify the case, the guy acquires the field from his father before he passes away, acquires whatever it is.
Remeir, we're talking about Remeir now, right?
Yeah. He gives him $10. He gives him the deed. So go ahead. He's now the rightful owner, the son. His name is whatever. Give him a name, Yehuda. So now Yehuda owns the field. His father passes away, and now he makes it hekdesh. Yehuda makes it hekdesh, and now what's the case? And now Yovel happens. That's the case.
Yeah.
Now Yovel happens. So the question is, he didn't.
Let's make sure we got that right. No, he was Makdashit, not Yovel. He was Makdashit.
He was Makdashit, right? So he was Makdashit, and then what happens?
So that's the question. So do we need a pasuk to? So
when Yovel happens, does it go back to the Kohanim? Does it go back to Yehuda? That's the whole question.
Yeah.
I don't.
If it's a staff,
how could you say? What's the basis of how we could say it would go to the Kohanim? How can we say that? The guy owns it outright. The guy made a hekdesh. Are you saying because he didn't podeh, because he didn't redeem it? Therefore, in Yovel, what he consecrated him at Mikdash, made a hekdesh. He lost ownership. So you say Yovel can't even undo. It cannot even undo someone that's makdash something. Right. That's the question. That's the key.
But that's only by ste'achuza. But because it had to do, I think the pshat is because it had to do with the father.
So let's get the other case. The other case is what's
the first case, the first brisa, that he bought a field from his father and he was makdash. I bought it. My father's alive and well. Right, makdash it, and the father dies.
Got it.
But when I was makdash it, that was clear that it was a staff who's already done. That's not a question.
If you were makdash it before the father passed away, that's achuzah, you telling me?
Because are you saying because I was like kech? We all of a sudden I consider that ste'achuza?
But you already. I'm not understanding what's nafkamina. Nafkamina is in both cases. You had it before the father passed away.
Yes,
so the question is, when you were makdash it, that's the whole question.
Yeah, obviously. So my love is it not in this issue that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon and Meir disagree? Rabbi Meir holds that the ownership of the rights of fields produce is tantamount to ownership of the essence of the field.
Good.
And therefore, in this case, if a son who purchased his father's field during the period that the law of Yovel was enforced, thereby acquiring ownership of the rights of the field's produce, which is tantamount to ownership of its essence.
Everything he got. Yeah.
Right. So when his father died, he did not inherit anything, since he had previously been deemed the own right. The Hilkach makes therefore, even if his father died first, and then he was makdash the field afterwards, Sarach Kra, a verse is necessary to teach us that the field is now regarded as a ste'achuza. Because why would we consider a ste'achuza? This is the pasuk. We're not dealing with svaros over here. We're dealing with psukim. So you can't ask a kasha. The answer is can't kasha.
I got it. So just to clarify, the whole key is the son acquires. He acquires entire ownership. פירות equals land. פירות equals land. Now he gives it to now he was makdash it. It's gone. That's it.
Yeah.
Even Yovel does not bring it back to him.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. So
whereas the other side is saying he was makdash it, but he wasn't makdash. He wasn't pledging the land. He was just pledging the פירות. So therefore, in Yovel, it would go back.
Right. So that's exactly. That's what the Gemara is trying to say.
Got it.
Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon Savri, Kinin Peres Lavke Kinin Aguf Dami.
Good.
And accordingly, in this case, where the son purchased his father's field, it is now upon his father's death that the son inherits the essence of the field, since he had previously been deemed to own only the rights to the produce, like you just said.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Therefore, if his father died first, and then he was makdash the field afterwards, we do not need a pasuk to teach us that it's treated as a steachuza. So where do I need a pasuk? Right? So what's this pasuk come to teach me? Where do I need a pasuk? What halacha do I need a pasuk for? So it's necessary in regard to the case where the son was makdash the field first, and the father died afterwards. Thus, there is a machlekes tanoim as to whether the ownership of the rights to the produce of a thing is tantamount to the ownership of the thing's essence. Good?
Perfect.
Beautiful.
And yes, and nafkamina also that the father's dying is critical, because the father's dying is, that's the trigger basically
Of making it a achuza.
Right, achuza that he has, that the son can, whether or not of making it a question whether the son has ownership to it or not post, following the yovel. Because if you say that he whatever he pledged was just the fruits and not the actual land, then he retains ownership post yovel. Yeah. And if you're saying that the other side, that no, he had everything and he had the right to pledge the land with the fruits, then it becomes the value.
Let's see. Let's see if we can get to the end of the parak on the next Amud. Okay, Menachem by Yitzchak. Yeah, Omer Menachem by Yitzchak. Laila Memelach, Laila I'll tell you, be Alma Kasav, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Kinin Peres, Kekina Guftam. That Alamal, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon hold, Kinin Peres, Kekina Guftam. V'halcha Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Kro, Ashkechu v'Dorosh. Over here, it's not the pshat because they're arguing about Kinin Peres, Kekina Guftam. It's a totally different story. There's a pasuk that they found and they darshan. So Rashi, V'halcha Kro, Ashkechu v'Dorosh, L'Rabuye Mino. To learn from here that Avik Disha V'Yakakach Mitzaviv, that the pasuk is coming to teach me that even if he was makdash first and then the father dies, it's still considered steachuza. The imkain loy marbi elameis aviv V'Yakakach Disha, because then otherwise we wouldn't be able to be marba only in a case where his father died and then he was makdash, and not the other way around as well. So that's what the pasuk is coming to teach me. So there's a rebuild in the pasuk, but it's not so much about the machlekes of kina peres kina guftam. So look the Rachmana. What does the Torah say? Right? If we're talking about a field that he bought that wasn't from Yerusha, why does the Torah have to say my misteachuzasai? What's misteachuzasai? So Zakti Gemara Sadesh ain't really a steachuza. We're talking about a field that will not be able to become a steachuza, excluding Yatus Azusha really a steachuza. Besides for this one, which is right to be a steachuz, like the Gemara explained just before, what? Now what is this? Lichtev krash aloyachuz, so lichtev misada. Why does the pasuk have to say misada? So misada is coming to tell you the mem is always going to be a mute, right? So we're saying that this is not going to be a steachuza, right? Because how could this field be a steachuza? We just explained that it's not yarishning. So then how could, right? So Zakti Gemara, but that's good for what the pasuk is coming to teach me. The pasuk is coming to be marba that this field is going to be a steachuza. Meaning it's not so much. Avada we're trying to be miyash of the sugi of kina perska kina guftami. Avada that's what we're trying to do. But you can't tell me that that's the entire svar of every Yehuda of Shimon. That's what the Gemara is saying. They're coming. It's not to be miyash of this brisa. It's not going to work with kina perska kina guftami. Why? Because they have a different limud. It's a limud that they're trying to figure something else out. It's not they're trying to figure out kin pets kin guf dummy. Right. It was a nice try, but it didn't. We did not succeed at it. Okay, weiter. Okay. Rabbi Yosef. Ilav the Rabbi Yechon kin pets kin guf dummy lemata yada raglav esmedrish. If not for the fact that Rabbi Yechon held that the halacha was kin pets kin guf dummy, he would not been able to find his yada raglav esmedrish. They would not have let him in. Yeah. So, meaning Rabbi Yechanan's whole standing.
Exactly. He holds that 100%. There's no other way he could.
There's no other way.
Right.
Look at Tyson makes big. Rabbi Tam makes big issues with this, but because we paskin, the might say paskin like Rish Lakish, so we have all kinds of issues with that. That's this Tyson. Yeah, you have homework. You finished this whole Tyson, the whole Amud long. Yeah. So le'matzonu yoda raglav esmedrish. Dam Rabbi Asi Rabbi Yechanan. Ha'achas shechalku lekucha is the brothers that had a Yerusha. They divided up the lekucha. That they divided it up. Lekucha saying umachzirin zelazeh b'yovel. Yeah, they're lekuchas, meaning it's as if they bought it, right? Umachzirin zelazeh b'yovel, and they have to give different parts back to each other by yovel. What does that mean? Zok Rashi, the ein breira, v'hava kamei shechlifu chelkein. It's as if they switched, they traded their properties. Umachzirin b'yovel mishum mitzvahs yovel. V'kevan the Omer Yerusha mitzchalek is havi lekicha. So the Gemara is saying a fascinating insight over here that Yerusha is considered as if he bought it. So if Yerusha is considered as if he bought it, what happens by yovel? It's got to go back to the original owner. Who's the original owner of the Yerusha? The father. There's no father. So where does it go? Im is like kinin Paris. So this is where kinin Paris kinin aguf comes into play. Dahainu kol lekicha shebashas yovel lav kinin aguf ve'ein maybe v'koyre. So any lekicha that's going to be b'shas yovel is not kekinin aguf dami because you have to own the property, right? Ve'ein maybe v'koyre. So Zakti Gemara b'sal kadayet lav kekinin aguf dami. If you're going to say that it's not kekinin aguf dami, le'mishkach es tamaisi bikurim elachad barchad ad Yeshua benun. The only people that are going to be able to bring bikurim are the people that had ben achar ben b'Yerusha. Meaning the oldest, let's say even the Ben Yachid, the Ben Achar Ben till Yeshua Benun from B'Shach Shechal Yeshuas Aretz. Otherwise, how would he be able to divide it? How would it? I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
I lost you.
So let's see Rashi and we'll try to explain this. Yeah. So lo mishkachas maybe v'kair ela b'Yerusha. You'd only be able to have mikra bikurim, maybe v'kairei, when the field that you were bringing bikurim from was given to you b'Yerusha, because otherwise it's maybe ve'in kairei, right? Because that's what we started off with in the Gemara. Shalei neschalka mishenavla b'mei Yeshua, meaning when it fell to Yerusha b'mei Yeshua, it wasn't divided. Lei nechlaka mishenavla b'mei Yeshua. Dainu chad bar chad. Shalei hayu loyu le'avu l'chol eder s'lema for ad Yeshua shnei bani l'shachar chal Yerusha. It had to be only a single child that would be yarshening that this person owns the entire chelak, because we just explained that there's the Gemara holds that ha'achan shachalku, the brothers that divide up Yerusha, it's l'kuchas saying. So if it's l'kuchas, that means that it has to go back. Meaning that if we're brothers and I traded with you, right?
Let's go back to it. I still don't understand.
So I don't know that it really goes back to anybody. I think that
gets back the same chelak they did originally, or
I would say something like that. I think they would have to switch it back to each other.
The same one, the same chelak.
I mean, if I had field number 1 and I switched it to number 3, when Yovel comes, we have to give it back to each other. That's what it sounds like. But even if not, it's not so much. That's only. I want to speak something out. That to me, that sounds like it's only technicality in Hilchis Yerusha right now.
Exactly.
The point really is the point of maybe v'kairei. It's not gonna. We're not gonna have a possibility of maybe v'kairei.
Thank you. That's my question.
We're not gonna have a lemishkachas maybe v'kairei unless you have a field that was owned by a Ben Yachid,
by one guy,
completely by Ben Yachid, Ben Yachid, all the way back to the time of what.
So you're telling me
the whole.
So
this whole story, the whole story doesn't make sense.
So meviva kore. So now you're setting a higher standard. You're telling me meviva kore only happens when the guy owns 0% of the whole thing.
Not only that, he has to be a Ben Yachid, because if it's divided up between another brother,
100%.
Yeah.
Or unless the other ones were excluded.
Oh my Rava, Kro umasnisa mesayla l'Reish Lakish. So the pasuk and the brayso are going to be a riot to Reish Lakish and not to Rabbi Yechon, because Reish Lakish holds that kinin parents is lav kinin aguf dami. Kro is b'mizpar shnei tevuos yimochelok. The pasuk says that by the counting of 2 tevuos yimochelok b'shas hayovel mishtay, and we're talking about b'shas hayovel. K'dichsiv b'mizpar shanim achar hayovel. Alma ein guf hakarka mocher ela tevuos. We're being medayik in the pasuk that the pasuk doesn't say sod over here. It says b'mizpar shnei tevuos. The tevuos, the pairs after it's already cut. So b'shas hayovel mishtay. So we're talking about when it's 2 yovels. Umasnisa, and we have a brayso to back this up as well. The Tanya b'chor neitel pishnayim b'soda hachizaras la'ava b'yovel, and a b'chor b'Yerusha takes two, right?
So
b'soda hachizaras la'ava b'yovel. Koloymar zok Rashi b'soda hachizaras la'acha machsham machar v'yah. Right? The father sold the field. Right? The brothers by Yovel now come and claim that field. right? The chazer b'chaye pshita. It's partial that if the father was alive, would go back to the father. But Ashmeina, it's coming to teach us the guf hakarka lehoya kanu lelekeh. The guf hakarka never belonged to the one who bought it.
Right.
And it really belonged to the father. It's muchzik to the father before the father died. If we're talking that it's really kikina guftam havle roy, right? And we know that a bachor doesn't get roy. The bachor only gets a bachor noitel muchzik, not roy. Right? Muchzik means he actually owns the land, not roy what he could get. Roy means that if let's say that guy, you need to figure it out. If you need to spend too many hours in the bank figuring it out what the lawyers, who this property belongs to, the bachor is not going to get it. The bachor only gets what's muhsik, what the father has from muhsik, what the father's holding right now. That's what the bachor is going to get. And the Gemara Darshan that's been muhsik shebi yodai. Omer Abai Zaktabai Naktinan Baal Benichse Ishtoi Tzarech Harsha. A husband in the wife's properties needs a harsha me Ishtoi. If somebody tries to, any handle or ride that's going to go on with this karka from the wife, the leka harsha matzi amal la bal dvarm didiat. The kinin perislav kikina guftami. He could say, "I'm not selling it to you. I don't want to have anything to do with you." Why? He said, "La bal dvarm didiat," because it belongs to my wife. It doesn't belong to him. So he needs a harsha. He would need to have a. How do they type harsha over there?
An authorization.
Yeah, power of attorney. Yeah.
So wait, just to clarify what we just said.
Yeah.
We just said now that according to the Shakish, obviously, that it goes always. It's never the actual title is never conveyed to the buyer. Only the rights, whatever you want to call it, fruit rights, mineral, whatever. Now, to the extent the father passes away, that now falls to the bechor. The bechor gets double of what? He gets double of the fruits in general, or of the
whatever it is, muhzik, not what's roy.
Right. So
whatever it extends now.
Whatever to the extent
whatever's real, whatever exists physically right now.
I got it. So he gets double of that, right? So now what do we say at the end? What is this whole next piece?
Oh, so naktinam balbet next to ishta. So I want to finish up the Gemara because that's I think we'll see it a little better. So naktinam balbet next to ishta tzarech harsha. You need an authorization from the wife in order for the. If somebody wants to buy the karka from the wife, so even if the husband is the owner now because of the marriage, right? She brought this property into the marriage, so the husband really owns it, right? But you need a harsha. You need to make sure that all the parties involved give rishus to be able to sell it. And that's only talking about when he's nachas haperi, when he wants to buy the field for the peris. But if he, only when he's not going to buy the Paris. But if he's only coming to buy the field to the Paris, and just like and because, meaning it's meaning because he's coming to buy only the Paris, then it's partial to Mishtoi Dina Gufa. So Rashi. He's coming to handle about the land and not about the Paris. So then he's also going to need to be Mishtoi Dina Agufa. He's also going to have to handle about the. Meaning, what's he coming to handle? Is he coming to handle about the Paris? He's not coming to handle about the Paris. He's coming to handle the Paris because of the land. Meaning, where do the Paris come from? They're not mushrooms. They don't grow out of thin air. Right? See, so Migu the Mishtoi Peri. Meaning, when the guy's coming to handle about Paris, he's really talking about that he wants to come and handle for the land. How do they touch it over here?
Yeah. Well, he's coming to.
I think they're waiting for us for
right.
Myra. Yeah.
Oh, they need us? That's good. It's good to be here.
Then, since he litigates concerning the produce, he will also litigate concerning the essence of the property, which is owned by his wife. So the royalty always goes back to the wife. Okay. No, I'm